Welcome to my first vegetable garden. Today's video is all about growing potatoes in containers. These are fabric pots. I sell them at my seed shop. This is a 4.5 gallon container. This is about a 10-gallon container. Grew potatoes in here last year. We're going to freshen up the soil. Show you how to do that with any basic organic granular fertilizer, as long as it has NP and K represented. If you want to do a trick, add in some more potassium. That can help get you bigger potatoes. I'll show you how to do all that. So I'm reusing the soil from last year. We'll freshen it up. If you're just getting started, you could buy any container mix, bag mix, or anything from the stores. It's more expensive that way, but you would just set it up just like I'm showing you. You just pour the bag in to about 4 inches, and then we'll go through the process. But you can use soil that you make at home. If you make your own container mix, you could freshen up the soil that you have. So last year I grew potatoes in here. I've already emptied out about 2/3 of it. You want to set up the base with 4 to 6 inches of soil. So we're almost to 4 inches. That's to give the potato some room for the roots to grow in. On top of the potato, you want a good 4 to 6 inches of soil. The potatoes, these are determinate variety, by the way. So the potatoes are gonna sprout out. These are the sprouts, you know, and grow. From the potato area, roots come out, the potatoes form. So they form around this potato. It's a determinate variety. That's how they grow. If you want more information, this is actually a short series on growing potatoes. The first video talks about determinate variety, indeterminate variety. How would you chit them? It means get this growing. How do you split them? If this was a really big potato, we would cut it into pieces. You can watch that video if you want. But to get it set up, you want at least 4 to 6 inches in the bottom so the roots grow down, and then 4 to 6 inches on top so the potatoes will fill in the space right there. You can go as small as this 4-5 gallon container. First thing that we want to do is get that soil level up to 4 to 6 inches. And we're going to refresh it with a little bit of the organic granular fertilizer. These are potatoes that actually overwintered. The cool thing about potatoes, in here, like this one rotted, well, and you got worms going in there. That's what happens. The potato actually begins to rot, but you have the sprouts that come out. Everything is good to go, but the worms love it. So let's toss that one. Here's another one that's a little bit rotting, but you could actually eat this one. So this, just FYI, this overwintered. I planted these late in August. You can plant potatoes in March, April, May, and then you can plant them again for a later crop. These take about 70 to 80 days to mature. Sometimes you get a bunch of little potatoes. So we're going to just fill this so that we have that solid 4 inches. My soil's made up of about 50% peat moss, compost, and then just some earth from around my yard. And it makes a great container mix. It's the addition of the peat moss that really makes a great container mix, and you can save yourself a lot of money. Potatoes don't like to be alkaline. They prefer a little more acidity. So the peat moss really does help them out. I'm going to take, and I just do this visually. This is an organic granular fertilizer, and I'm just going to scatter it pretty heavily across the top. Mix it in. That's going to give your potatoes or anything you're growing the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Now, this you don't have to do. This is potash, high in potassium. It's a 0,060 potassium, or K, you'll see on there. You don't need a lot. In a little space like this, just that much, mix it through. Potatoes really use potassium for most of their functioning, helps them develop nice sized potatoes. Because we're growing in a container, the nutrients get sucked out of here much more quickly than if you're growing in raised beds or earth beds. So you really want to add in the fertilizer. You do not need to do this. At basic NP and K, I think this is a 5.33 NP and K. It'll work. Once you have the 4-6 inches, that's pretty close. We'll add a little bit more. And we're doing this all in real time. We would do the same thing for this larger container. I'll show you that. And then the potatoes that I'm using are smaller. If you have really large potatoes, you are cutting them into pieces. So what I'm looking for is I really want 2, 3 eyes, 2 or 3 sprouts on there. So here we have 2. In this small container, I'm just putting in 2 potatoes. Something like that. Gonna just press them in a little bit. Plenty of room for the potatoes to grow into. And then all I'm gonna do is cover this back over for a good 4 to 6 inches. Just so you know that this container, let me get the tape measure out, is about 10 inches wide, whoops, and then you can see about 10 inches high. This is the minimum size that I would grow them in. The issue really becomes is they'll grow in any container, but when these get larger and all the greenery is growing, the potatoes are developing, this is going to dry out really quickly. It's going to use up nutrients really quickly, so you have to stay on it. So please subscribe. I'll show you how to take care of these in this series as the season progresses. So we're just going to fill this up to the top. Once we get this to the top, we're going to take another handful of the organic granular, and we are really scattering it across the top so it looks something like that. And then you're really mixing it down, you know, a good 4 inches down. There's an old potato. And if you wanted to do the potassium, you could just take a little bit, sprinkle it across the top, mix it in. This is pretty much good to go. Water it in with any water-soluble fertilizer. That will give it NP and K that it can use immediately. The organic granular, the potassium will slowly dissolve, slowly break down with microbes, and it will feed this potato bag for a while. Then go ahead, stick in something that lets you know that you're growing Yukon Gold. You planted them on 325. The other thing about planting these is the potatoes are going to be fine if a frost comes. They're going to be protected. But when the green growth comes up, frost can kill them off. So you want to plant your fabric pots, your containers, your earth beds about 4 weeks from your last average frost, so that when the green grows up, it's not damaged by the frost. If a frost comes and damages a little bit, it'll be fine, it'll work it out. So the next step is really going to this 10-gallon container, which is about 15 inches across, and it's about 12 inches tall. The more room you have, the more potatoes you can put in there. Let me get this set up. With the larger container, we're going to be able to put in more potatoes. You want, again, 4 to 6 inches in the base. That's about 5 inches. At least 6 inches up top so that we can get the depth right. Again, visually, that's a bigger handful. Now again, this is organic granular fertilizer. This is basically chicken manure, blood meal, bone meal, some other stuff. You know, pretty heavily handed, placed it in there, and mix this in a couple inches deep. Just get it mixed through there. Now, you want the organic granular type when you're doing it this heavily. This will slowly break down with soil microbes, slowly feed the potatoes. And you want a lot of fertilizer in there in your containers, because the potatoes and any plant really goes through the NP and K really, really quickly. If you want to add in the potassium, almost the same amount, sprinkle it across, mix it in. We're going to support the potato growth a lot with water-soluble fertilizer. Just FYI for watering, because I'm doing this, you know, towards the end of March and even April, you only have to water these maybe twice a week. There's not going to be a lot of water loss because it's colder. Once the plants start growing, it's getting warmer, you're going to have to water these maybe every day when they're really large, but at least every 1 or 2 days. Keep the moisture in there. That's the second tip. If you don't water enough, the potatoes aren't going to really form. You're going to always have stressed plants. So watering is really important as we get into May and it's warmer and the plants are growing. So once you have the space set up, you know, you don't want to do just 2 potatoes. 3 potatoes, 2 or 3 eyes in each of them. That's really set up for larger potatoes. You have a lot of room. I like to put in, to be honest with you, 4 or 5. I don't mind potatoes that stay about this size. This is perfect for me. I cook them with beans and with green beans and stuff. You could do something like this. You could put a 5th one right in the middle, which I'm going to do. And because this is about 6 inches, I'm going to sink these down about 1 inch. And that's going to set up my container. And then I'm using a bagged mix that I used for a video. Again, any potting mix, raised bed mix, container mix, it's mostly wood. It's not really great stuff, but potatoes do fine in this. Whatever's inexpensive. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just get it, you know, into the container, let the potatoes grow. So I'm going to fill this up to the top, put the fertilizer on one more time. Bring the soil level up to the top. There's a good 4-6 inches on top of here. Again, another handful of the organic granular. About this much of the potassium. And again, that potash is a 0060, so it has no nitrogen, no phosphorus, and by weight in there, 60%, or by volume, can't ever remember which one, but it's 60% potassium. So we really have a lot of potassium in here. Now, a trick that you can do, now we did put 5 potatoes down there, but if we just put in 3 for larger potatoes, or even if you want to cram more in there, you could take some of your smaller potatoes. You're not going to want to go down 4 to 6 inches. You're going to plant these more shallow, only about 2 inches, maybe 3 inches deep. This whole space, or this whole container, is packed full of potatoes. They're going to be baby potatoes, smaller. I might even just throw in some more or the organic granular. Just let this break down on top. As it rains, as we water, it'll wash down there. This is overfilled with 7 potatoes, but in a size like this, if you want larger potatoes, 3 or 4, you're good to go. Baby potatoes, you can pack them in there. And just a quick review, this is a 4 or 5 gallon container. I sell these fabric pots at my seed shop. This is the 10-gallon one. There's a 20-gallon one. You could, you know, follow the same principle. I recommend the 10s and the 20s. They really hold the moisture, hold the nutrients, and you get really large sized potatoes out of there. In the smaller containers it works. They're going to be a little bit smaller in size. Here are the 20-gallon containers we sell. Just wanted to give you a quick look at it. It's about 19-20 inches across, 12 inches tall. I'm going to plant this up at the end. Well, I'm going to plant this up when the video is done. These are perfect for growing 2 pepper plants, a tomato plant, potatoes of course. The whole issue with container gardening is when the plants get to full size, the heat of the summers here, they can dry out in a day. And you don't want your plants to have a root system that completely dries out. It impacts the growth of the plant. So the larger containers just work better come, you know, the high heat of the summer. Basic setup. You're going to water it in with a water-soluble fertilizer. When you're done, label them. And then you really just gotta let these grow until you see the greenery coming up. At that point, we'll feed them again. And subscribe. I'll show you how to take care of the container potatoes over the season in this series. Check out the video description. It will have the basics of chitting a potato, cutting a potato, and the difference between determinate and indeterminate variety potatoes. Hopefully I didn't say tomatoes in that mouthful. Thanks so much for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com and give growing potatoes in containers a try. It works, it's a lot of fun, and you're really rewarded. And it's so much fun, especially if you have kids, when they dig down into the container and they find little gems like this. Thanks for watching.